Well, good afternoon and welcome back to Cottage Farmstead. I'm Rebecca and I'm here solo today as I had the day off from work while Farmer Nathan still had to go out and harvest produce. It's been a gray past few days here in South Carolina, but it means it's a great time to start planning the future garden this coming year. And we've had some very exciting mail come in. We've had Baker Creek come in, Johnny's seed catalog came in, Seed Savers Exchange came in, Select Seeds came in, Osborne came in, and we have a few more that we're hoping that will come in the mail soon, but it got us inspired to start planning our garden, especially since we have a whole new space to work with this coming year. So I've got my handy dandy seed box here, and I'll be going through there and taking an inventory of what seeds we already have and see if there's anything that I need to purchase this year or not. We're probably not going to be purchasing a whole lot of seed this year, even though these seed catalogs are really tempting, because we are starting from scratch on a new piece of land, and we're also simultaneously building our house, probably going over into the spring. So we're not going to have as big of a garden as we were hoping to have eventually. So we're kind of having to find that compromise of what's too big, can we still grow all of our own tomatoes or something this coming year. We're still trying to balance that out. But we do know, and talking over a couple evenings ago, that we do want to grow, if possible, tomatoes, green beans, herbs, some of the staples that we like putting up for food preservation, even if we don't get into potatoes and popcorn and all the other things that we do plan to eventually grow. So while there are lots of different garden planning softwares available online for free or for pay, I still prefer doing my garden planning on paper, and I especially love bullet journals that have the dotted pattern on here. It makes it so much easier to draw straight lines and angles, and just makes it much neater. I appreciate the neatness when working on these. So what I'll be sharing with you today is our aspirational garden. This is probably not going to happen all this year. Portion of this has been dug up, and then another significant portion of this is still field with grass this tall in it. And there's still going to be final grading work and then bringing cranes in to build our house, so we may not have time to put this entire garden in this year. But we do have plans to use some of the wood that we have in our woods to do a modified hugelkultur style. There's some rotting logs out there that have already started decomposing that we're thinking will start a hugelkultur bed that's maybe a little bit further along in the decomposition process, because we don't want to disturb the soil too much and do a no-dig method, because there is so much grass seed, because this has been a field for at least 100 years. So we'd rather not disturb the seed bank too much. All right, so here is our garden plan. I have always wanted a English style garden. It never really materialized here at the current cottage we live in. We just didn't have enough sunlight to make it worthwhile growing in our yard, so we decided to borrow some space and a sunnier plot of ground a little bit further away from our house, but still convenient to go travel out to. So that's what we've been doing the last few years to grow our sun-loving crops. But this, at our future homestead, our house is facing south, so our front yard is going to be our garden, because that's where we're going to get the most sun. And I wanted it to be very pretty, since it is going to be our front yard. Like I said, I've always loved English style gardens. I like symmetry. I like the different shapes that you get in there. I love having a picket fence. So these dash lines here eventually are going to be a picket fence that goes around the front, because we want to keep, obviously, our animals out. So we're going to have a picket fence around the outside. We're going to have gates at a couple locations, probably a few more over here in the future. This year we're planning to focus mostly on just this inner square here. Like I mentioned, we are going to get some old logs from the woods and kind of outline our beds here with a modified hugelkultur style bed. So we'll put some rotting logs down, get some wood chips delivered. There's a nearby goat farm and a chicken farm that both have manure available, so we'll be kind of just dumping all that in there on top of the grass so that we start killing it this year. And we'll probably be fighting grass for many years. We do have a lot of perennials that we're planning on moving, so we'll be moving some of our medicinal herbs and culinary herbs into one of these sections. And one of my friends bought us a flat of strawberries, so we'll be adding those into our garden. And then the rest of it is, as we have time and available resources, or if this gets graded in time, we'll be putting in different pieces of this garden over this coming year. And then eventually we would like to have these larger outer beds, because we want to be able to grow potatoes and squash, cucumbers, and things that kind of sprawl that we don't necessarily want in a more raised bed style garden. Because we have tried growing squash several times in our garden and it eventually just takes over the entire thing, no matter how much we hack it back. So we're hoping to have nice big sections for those. So in an ideal world, if everything works out and the final grading is done and the mulch is all delivered on time and we have fair weather, the ideal garden this coming summer/spring, we would start with having a section of our determinate tomatoes that we'd use for canning our sauces. And we'll intermix things like basil and marigolds, calendula, things that are great for deterring pests and that tomatoes also love growing next to. Next to it, we would have a couple determinate tomato plants because we do like some cherries and a couple of the beefsteaks. And then we'll also have our tomatillos in there. And also intermix things like calendula and some of the more annual herbs in there. We have struggled growing peppers in our small garden, but we think it's mostly due to the lack of sunlight. They end up getting shaded out at some point by something in our small garden space, so we're hoping this year to have a lot of great sunlight being southern exposure at long last and no trees nearby to shade anything. So we're planning on doing quite a few bell peppers. That's pretty much our favorite pepper and we eat a lot of them. 2 jalapenos because we like making salsa and eating some different Mexican dishes. My cousin-in-law mentioned some sweet peppers that I'm interested in trying this year. She said they grew really well for her. Then we're going to move some of our medicinal and perennial herbs that we moved over to our current urban farm plot, and I'll link above. We moved those this past spring so that we'd have them off of our current home property that we're planning on selling this spring, so we don't have to try and move a household and all of our plants simultaneously. We love eating dry beans, so we'll have a whole bed of black beans, and we also really enjoy doing the arches in our garden this past summer, so I'll probably do an arch between the herbs and the black beans and do some of the Cherokee Trail Teal beans there. We have a really delicious red bean that also climbs, so we'll probably do another arch here. Then we'll probably have a bed of onions, radishes, turnips, and some kohlrabi, kind of your root crops in here. We didn't plant onions this fall. We just didn't have time and space with trying to get our house build going, so we just didn't have time to deal with onions. So we'll probably plant some summer varieties here. A friend gave us some strawberries, so that we'll be planting those. And then we have some asparagus plants that we've had in pots here at our urban homestead for several years now that we get a couple stalks on them, but we're really looking forward to seeing how they take off when they're in their own dedicated spot. And then we'll move over here to our green beans. I like green beans, Nathan likes yellow beans, and then we have a purple pod bean that we also really like, but it climbs, so we'll also be doing another arch here. And if everything is really perfect, we might try doing some potatoes and popcorn in these outside beds, but we'll probably let these other ones lay fallow just because we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Compared to our garden last year, we were growing in a square that was 30 by 30, and this square is 40 by 40. So it's not going to be a huge increase from what we were already used to preserving and growing, because we just didn't want to get in way over our head since we are new to this land. We're probably going to still be finishing off stuff on the house. We're hoping to get cows, so we didn't want to expand so much that it would be too far beyond our means and time resources. The ultimate goal is to add a picket fence around the outside here, have multiple gates. There is a gate right here because our house has some stairs that go down to our basement, and that's where we're going to store a lot of our food. So when we harvest our squash and our potatoes and things like that, we want to be able to just slip right into our basement and put them into our root cellar for storing. On the other side over here, we are planning to just put our chicken coop over there this coming season because our chickens are not used to wildlife pressure, so they are going to be closer to the house until we get some more chickens that are a little bit more savvy to living out in the open, more than our chickens that live in a very secure double-fenced backyard in the suburbs. So they'll be over here next to our house where we can keep an eye on them. We've also talked about getting some dwarf fruit trees and having them planted between our house and the future location of our barn is over this side as well. So having a small orchard, maybe put some Concord grapes, that's my favorite grape, some vines over here, And I'd love to eventually build a small glass greenhouse that we could do some of our seed starting in. So there's some space on this side of the house that we'll be taking advantage of in future years. It's just not something we're gonna bite off this year. One of the great things about using graph paper or bullet journal paper is you're able to mark off more or less to scale. So what I did here is I did one block is 2 feet. So I'm able to calculate how many tomato plants am I going to need in each of these sections. So it's about 15 tomato plants with some generous spacing and being able to put some basil and marigolds in there. Same thing with our peppers and tomatillos. And then for other plants like beans, those are just kind of sow and thin out as we go. So I wasn't doing a precise calculation, but for things that we're gonna need to start in advance, I like to have an approximate number of plants that I need to get started. So I did that calculation here. And I'll be going through our seed box to see if I have tomato seed for determinate tomatoes that we wanna grow for canning this year or not, to see if I need to purchase any. So we have our seeds organized alphabetically. And this is our vegetable seed container. I do have another one that's for our herbs and flower seeds. It's alphabetical in here for just the beans, and I'll have all the beans in there just so that I can find things easily. Mostly I'm concerned this year with having enough tomatoes and peppers, as those were ones that we prioritized what we would want to grow this year if nothing else. So let's see what I have in here. I do have paprika seed. We seed saved some in 2020 and they grew great, so I'll probably plant those. Violet Sparkler did all right. We were really impressed with the Carolina Wonders, so yep, got plenty of seed in there. We seed saved some of that too. Got plenty of jalapeno seeds. A few more of the original paprika seeds. So it looks like we have plenty of pepper seeds. What we did get low on last year was tomato seeds, so let's see what we got. Oh good, we do have some tomatillo seeds, and I think we seed saved some. Yeah, there's some more back there that we seed saved. Some yellow pear. That white cherry seed is getting old. We made seed packets for our wedding, and some of the seeds getting a little old now, but we might be able to grow some. Let's see, I think we got these last year. Yeah, we got plenty of those. We didn't love this variety last year, so we may not grow it again. I can't wait to see how these grow in full sun. They're so pretty. More yellow pear. As cool as these look and taste, they split on us and rot on us so much, so we might not grow those. These grew well for us. I will probably plant those again, but we might need a few more determinate tomatoes for canning. These are always cute to give people as gifts. They're so tiny, they're these little plants. And these were not as tasty as I thought they were gonna be. Tomatoes seem to be like a very personal preference. So I'm gonna have to keep looking for a cherry tomato that I love as much as the hybrid Sun Gold, because I'd love to be able to seed save and not rely on buying seed every year. All right, so it does look like we'll need to get try a different cherry variety, find one that I like better, and we'll need some more determinate seed. But I think we have enough of the Cherokee Purple. Yeah, we'll have plenty of that for a couple of those beefsteak plants. So next on our priority list are beans, and especially dried beans, because those are some of our favorite, and green beans. Those are probably equally tied. I think we have enough. We bought a lot of Cherokee Trail tier beans, so I think we have enough of those for this year, and we saved purple potted beans. And we planted some of these last year and they didn't grow great, so we may need some more of the green beans. And I think we're totally out. Yeah, we're totally out of the yellow beans that Nathan likes. And I'm not seeing our red beans that we saved from the previous year, so we might need to get some more of those too. So we'll probably be getting mostly bean seeds this year, which thankfully are not as expensive, and hopefully there's no shortages on them. So one of the best ways to not overspend on seeds or buy duplicate seeds is to have a list. We like using a little seed inventory here, so I can go through what we have, what we're planning on growing from our plans, and make a list of what we need to purchase this coming year. as you can see, I have a fairly short list this year. Some years I have pages and pages where I'm buying a whole bunch of seed. But for the past few years, we've been trying to save more and more of our own seeds. So we've saved some of our squash and tomato and pepper and cucumber seeds from last year. So we'll be replanting those, which means we're able to go and purchase new varieties that we haven't tried growing before with our limited seed budget. So now that I have my list here, I'm gonna open up all these seed catalogs knowing what sections I need to focus on rather than looking at all of it and getting tempted and wanting to buy 500 packets of seeds this year. I know what sections I need to be spending most of my time in. So this year it'll be tomatoes, beans, and we also want to get an asparagus patch going. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing what some of our garden plans are for the coming year and years, depending on how long it takes us to get this set up. If you're interested in using a seed inventory worksheet like this, we have it available for free on our website that you can download and print off. And if you would like more organizational sheets for your garden, we do have a shop on our website where you can download a printable garden journal that has sections for expenses and seed wish lists and monthly to-do lists in the garden, and even some graph paper so that you can doodle your own garden plans on it. You can check that out on our website at cottagefarmstead.com. Well, I hope you enjoy browsing all the seed catalogs that are showing up in your mailbox. I know that we will be doing that this weekend. I hope you have a wonderful start to your new year. Happy growing!